Welcome to Windsor Wonderland, the podcast about all the things that make you smile about living in Windsor, Ontario, and all the things that make you shake your head.
For decades, Ontario operated under a so-called weak mayor system, where a mayor was simply one of 11 votes on a council, a system designed to ensure no single person could dictate the future of a city. But in July 2023, the rules of the game changed for Windsor. Under the Provincial Strong Mayors and Building Homes Act, Mayor Drew Dilkens was granted sweeping executive authorities, powers the province claimed were essential to solve the housing crisis by slicing through municipal gridlock. However, in practice, these powers have acted less like a scalpel for housing and more like an administrative bludgeon to consolidate the mayor's control. Dilkens was granted these powers by the province on July 1st, 2023. His first use of them was just 11 days later, despite declarations of not seeing why he would ever need to use these powers. Since then, the mayor has been one of the most active in the province, using them 82 times, and their use has more to do with building a wall to insulate himself from the voters' will, and very little to do with building homes.
Traditionally, democracy relies on majority rule, at least 6 votes on Windsor's 11-member council. The new legislation flips this on its head for items tied to provincial priorities like housing and transit. Now, the mayor can pass a budget or a priority bylaw with just 1/3 of council support, meaning he only needs the support of 3 other councillors to override the will of the remaining 7. Conversely, if a majority of council wants to amend the mayor's budget or override a veto, they face a nearly impossible hurdle: a 2/3 supermajority of 8 votes. In Windsor, this math has created a political theater where the mayor can appear to engage in consultation while knowing his desires will ultimately prevail. Critics argue these powers result in the erasure of local representation. Nowhere was this clearer than in the controversy over the Transit Windsor tunnel bus service to Detroit. Despite a 7-4 majority of council voting to save the international transit line, representing the democratic choices of residents in 7 different wards, Mayor Dilkens used his executive veto to terminate the service. Because the council could not reach the mandatory 8-vote threshold to override him, the service was ended. This single act nullified the votes of a majority of local representatives, proving that under this framework, the voice of the mayor can outweigh the collective voices of the city. Beyond the council chamber, the powers have triggered what experts call a chilling effect on the civil service. Mayor Dilkens has used approximately 29 of his 82 directives, more than a third, to unilaterally hire, fire, or alter the duties of senior staff, including the chief administrative officer. By law, mayors can now fire almost any division head, forcing public servants to serve at the pleasure of a single politician rather than council as a whole. If this is beginning to sound like an authoritarian government, just like in the US, you ain't seen nothing yet. Professional organizations warn that this shatters the firewall between impartial analysis and political survival. In Windsor, this has manifested in the absolute centralization of power within the mayor's office, as staff are incentivized to provide advice that aligns with the mayor's political goals rather than objective, independent analysis. In other words, the mayor's yes men and women will weed out any independent voices in their ranks to keep the mayor happy. And if this is detrimental to the lives of the voters in the city, well, that's a risk the mayor is willing to take. While the province marketed these powers as a tool for housing, a comprehensive analysis by the Toronto Star found that just 2% of more than 4,200 strong mayor decisions across Ontario have been directly in support of housing. Instead, they have been used primarily for corporate reorganization. In Windsor, the friction grew so intense that a supermajority of council, an 8-3 split including conservatives, moderates, and progressives, voted to formally ask the province to strip Windsor of these powers. They framed it as a defense of local democracy against a framework they viewed as democratically toxic.
As Windsor approaches the 2026 election, the legacy of these powers remains. A system where the buck stops with the mayor, but where the traditional checks and balances of a functioning democracy have been willfully and significantly eroded in deference to Dilkens' desires.
We're going for a walk in the Windsor Wonderland. Shh, just look closer. Windsor Wonderland.